And when you live in half congruence, when something's tugging at your heart and soul and you don't follow it, things get shaken up in your life. I almost tanked my business and stressed my finances, and I was unhappy. But during that continued exploration, it brought me to become a Reiki master and certified yoga teacher. And for the first time in my career, I learned about mind, body, soul, and spirit. I didn't learn that in graduate school. Hello, I'm Jeanine Thompson. Thanks for tuning in and living your superior life.
Jeanine, love that intro. I don't know if you got the call, but I was definitely getting dialing you up at 911 from the soul. Let's talk about that, right? Like your book, like what inspired this book? And like, did you feel like it was a pull from the universe to write this?
I did indeed. It was from my own personal experience that the phrase 911 from your soul dropped in during meditation. It was during a time in my life where the details of my life looked pretty darn good from the outside. From all external perspectives, I have the big Fortune 50 executive job. I had great kids, cool travel, the accoutrements of success. All the things we're told are success. And yet I just kept having this persistent restlessness and yearning. Like there's got to be something more to life. There's something missing. And it led me to leave my Fortune 50 role and embark on a search. And I'm super crazy curious. So I started reading poetry and philosophy and sacred literature and sacred sites, anything I could get my hands on. But all of them kept bringing me back to soul. And during that time, and it was the first time really in my life, even with all of my education, that I went inward. We're taught to go outward, go out to the experts, go out into the world to make yourself happy. And those things can be beautiful when created in harmony. But the true riches in life are, the true gold is found through the interior journey. The issue became once I learned what I was asked to do in terms of my next chapter, my next mission, which was to bring the power of love and tapping into expanded potential through the soul into business, I got scared. And I started to play small. I'm like, are you kidding me? There's no way I am going to bring this to my executives. They aren't going to understand it. They're going to reject it. So I practiced safe executive counseling or coaching. And by the way, I don't mean that. That wasn't a great way to frame it. I would say traditional executive coaching. There is a need for it, and it's extraordinarily valuable. But I knew it wasn't my calling. And I knew the people who were looking for me were looking for something in addition to the proven science-based strategies. And so ultimately I stepped on my own garden hose, played small, hit out. And when you live in half congruence, when something's tugging at your heart and soul and you don't follow it, things get shaken up in your life. I almost tanked my business and stressed my finances, and I was unhappy. But during that continued exploration, it brought me to become a Reiki master and certified yoga teacher. And for the first time in my career, I learned about mind, body, soul, and spirit. I didn't learn that in graduate school. I certainly didn't learn that in best practices as a Fortune 50 executive. And they were things I made fun of 20 years ago. And then I accessed these 7 clear spiritual principles about living our expanded potentiality. And they became my blueprint. And I started to live my own principles every day and start to bring those messages to my executives and entrepreneurs and leaders. And those sessions were fire. They were absolute fire. Like, they felt totally alive again. Some of them sparked new entrepreneurial ideas. Some of them left their job. I mean, they each had their own pathway, but that was my 911. And I knew, literally for 2 decades, people have said, Thompson, when are you going to write a book? And I'd be like, I know. But this one I knew I had to write because there are so many of the successful people that I work with and these high performers who are hungry to live their superior life and become the excellence and the extraordinary beings that they are. But something's missing, and they're leaving potential on the table every day.
Such a beautiful story. I mean, I can relate to a lot of that personally. They're not teaching me a lot of the stuff that you're talking about in college either. It's, science-based, evidence-based. Um, but there is a pull, right? Like, there is something that's pulling us, right? And you have that 911. What did you feel like when that 911 call was coming from your soul? Where did you feel that in your body?
Oh, that's such a great question. I felt it. I felt it in my heart. There
Wow.
was something missing. Like, literally, it's like a heartache for love, that you're searching for. I felt it. I heard it in my mind. I constantly woke up either at 3:33 or 3 a.m. saying, beloved, there's something more for you, and there's something more through you.
Hmm.
So those stand out the most, but I also just felt it in, I have a lot of vitality and energy. I love life, but I didn't have the same juice. Like, I got up each morning, I'm like, come on, Thompson, let's gratitude. Let's just be grateful. You have so much to be grateful for. But I could not gratitude the call away. When your soul's really trying to reach you, you have to follow it. Or you might live a life of regret. And I was worried if I didn't, I would regret that I didn't become all I sensed that I could.
Hmm. Did you have children at the time?
I did. That was part of the dilemma, right? I was a Fortune 50 executive, international executive, running an HR department in a plane 200,000 to 300,000 miles a year. I was a single mom of my kids, Tanner and Taylor, who were the world to me still to this day. They're amazing, amazing souls in the world.
Hmm.
And that was part of the pull. It's like, are you nuts? You have got security. I loved, honestly, my team, my CEO, the mission, cool travel. I love so much of what I was doing. And yet that yearning could not be satiated.
Hmm. What did it look like for you when you took that leap of faith? Like, when you left that part of you, when you went to go experience that, answer that calling, like,
You
did you fall flat on your face, or did you kind of have the universe give you stepping stones?
I think it's a little bit of both. I mean, I always believe that the universe, when I look back, there was an utter intelligence in life, key inflection points that led me exactly to where I am today. I would not be credible on stage or with my clients had I not had probably been steeped in the science of human development and or in tangible, grounded grit of being an executive, right? So now I'm credible with them and I understand business, I understand P&L, and I love their language. So I always felt guided. But there were a lot of days where I didn't realize how much walking away from my identity of a successful executive actually was a part of who I understood myself to be. You know, we get all wrapped up in our roles. Our roles are not who we are. It just happens to be a vehicle of expression that I think the universe is temporarily using us as to make a difference in the world. But for a while I was lost, and I woke up and like, what did you do? So then I went traveling again. You know, it wasn't as if I didn't travel enough for my job, but this time it was for personal. And I thought, certainly, you know, I'm going to crack this code on what's next. But so some dark days, some days of what did I do? But when I learned how to rest in the breath of love and listen, and for the first time in my life, not figure it out. My whole life, I was taught, use your big brain, figure it out, get moving, do something, you know? So that's how my type A self was wired back then. And it's the antithesis of the fertile soil of the dark times and the unknown. It's actually there, the trove of intelligence and answers and love reveals itself.
And that heart space more, right? Like, you know, I've always led with my brain. Like I've always tried
Me
to
too.
problem solve. Like I've always tried to analytically dissect a problem. And I find myself more confused than ever, really, right? And you know, it's for me, it's been here's the aha moment for me, right? Like I just got back from LA, did a lot of healing work out there, and came back and stumbled upon like some new literature. I don't know if it was because I was just, you know, different, or I know I'm different, but attracting different teachings. For some reason, I just had this awareness, this realization that like every decision that I've ever made in my life has gotten me to right here, right now with you. Like every decision, every yes, and every no,
Yeah.
and every non-decision has
Yeah.
gotten me right here. So I have literally created my life, like my reality, just by saying yes or no. Even saying I don't know or not, I'm not going to make a decision. And there was such relief in that, you
Yes.
know, because
Yes.
I've always tried to look at things from a left brain
Uh-huh.
aspect, and I've driven myself nuts. Like, how can this have happened to me? How can I have been here? What? Why is the universe against me?
Yeah.
And it's not that at all. It's like I've made this path brick by brick with every decision that I've ever made. And like when that realization hit, it was like a freedom. Like,
Absolutely.
you know, does that make
Absolutely.
sense?
It makes perfect sense. And I think I want to comment on a couple of things. So I'm going to go back and then I'm going to comment on what you just said. When you said you always use your brain in the analytics, that's what we're trained to do. And now come to find out, now there's neurological evidence that we have three brains: our head, our heart, and our gut. And we don't know how to make those work from a science perspective. But I think the gold is in the three levels of the heart.
Hmm.
We have our physical pump organ that we're aware of. We've got the emotional level that we've all felt, like, you know, something we're super excited about, new love, whatever it might be, that is completely delicious and makes you feel alive. We've had loss and tragedy. We feel the extreme beauty and tragedy in the emotional heart. But where our answers really rest is one energetic, subtle layer deeper, which is the spiritual heart. And that's the heart the mystics and the scholars spoke about. That's the heart we're not taught to access. So I think it's both. I love the fact that I now can explain that sometimes my gut said turn left, GPS might have said right, or maybe the team thought a better decision was right, and my gut was like, no, I think we should turn left. My heart was like, we got to turn left, but my head stopped me because it said, no, the data's not there. Team's right, let's go with the wisdom of the crowds. And then a couple weeks later, I heard myself say, I knew I should have. I knew I should have. So we got to learn. We do need to learn how to understand how to make our three different brains work together. But first, I would say we have to figure out how to kind of tune into the energy that will give you access to whatever it is you seek and whatever you're meant to become.
I want to go back to you were talking about the personality, right? Or
Yes.
successes. If we're not the personality, what are we?
Well, in my language, I would say that we are soul. So to me, personality and ego are part of our conditioned self. They're the experiences, the filters, the biases from our childhood, from influential authority figures, from the culture, that shapes our personality, but that's our human nature. But we also have a divine nature. Call it whatever you want. It doesn't have to be associated with religion, it can be the quantum, modern science. But we have this supernatural divine nature. And that's the truth of who we are. And part of what the principles in my book do, I have sections that are the earth view. How do we get stuck in the earth view of mind? And then what's the soul view of mind? And then how do you live the beauty of the ant? Because I think that we're souls traversing in a wonder suit of a body.
What is it? What they call it? A flesh suit or a meat suit or something
Yeah,
like that?
yeah, but for folks who are listening right now and they go, oh man, that the word soul is loaded for them or carries, doesn't work for them. Try this on for size. There's a Greek philosophy from Aristotle called entelechy. And entelechy is the realization of potential. So it's the entelechy of an acorn seed to become an oak tree. It's entelechy of a caterpillar to become a butterfly. Will you too, every single one of you listening right now, have the entelechy, that seed of potential that wants to be birthed through you and only can be birthed uniquely through you?
I want to talk about this because it's not advertised on your website.
Yeah.
Or maybe it is. I just haven't found it yet. But some of your non-traditional education that I really am attracted to. Let's see. RTT, Reiki master,
Yeah.
and yoga instructor. Where is the channeler in this? I thought you're a channeler too,
I
right?
am indeed.
I love that.
I
It's
am,
not. Is that not advertised?
it is. I mean, I write about it some in my book. I wrote the whole book in the forest. You might have seen the pictures on my website. It's a channeled book largely. What was the
What do you
question?
tap? What it was just I'm just messing
Yeah.
with you. I'm just like I think I found the secret sauce here. I think I've tapped into something special with,
Yeah.
you being a channeler. So I was like, I've heard a couple of interviews and you had mentioned that, and then I went back and looked at the website and I didn't see it, and I was
Yeah.
like, huh. Um, I'm more interested in like because I think in one of the emails you sent me, like the most influential book was a book titled Spiritual Growth, Being Your Higher Self.
Yes.
I actually It's funny about coincidences because I actually have I guess her name is Sanaya Roman.
Yes, got it right here. Yep.
Yeah. So there was I bought this book a long time ago, but it's the one of like how to channel. Like I just never like I looked at it, glanced through it, put it back on the bookshelf in the library, and then you sent me that, and I was like, that name is so familiar. Why do I know this name? And I went back and I found that book, and I was like, ah. And then I found out that you actually do channel. What does that look like for you?
What it looks like for me is, first of all, I've got to get out of my human nature way, right? So I find ways to soften and empty my mind. That might just be as simple as the breath, but conscious breath. One hand on heart center, one on my belly, and really just connecting with the breath. Um, so sometimes it's an active process to drop into channeling, but I'm also, when I meet people, I feel energy, I intuit messages, it just comes to me. But
Mhm.
I do like to just empty and purify this vessel so I receive whatever the individual might be ready to hear and or is most meaningful to him, her, they, them.
Now,
So
are you tapping into your higher self or like an entity or being separate from that? Do you do
I
you
actually,
know?
I think it's both. Like
Yeah.
when in Reiki, I always think it's a both and. So for me personally, I think we're co-creative agents in this world. So when I heard you say, you had that realization about being and this wasn't your language, but an agent in, all the decisions.
Hmm.
I totally agree with that. And for me, I'm a beauty of the and girl. There's an and to it, which is there's also however you understand what animates life. Um, there's a co-creative agent in that. So sometimes there are messages that drop through for me that individuals are asking and wanting to hear. So I think it's a combination of both. I think it's a combination of deeply tuning in and receiving um, help and being used as a vessel from a power greater than me.
Mm, so beautiful. I love it. I love channeling. I think there have been some great channels. There's a guy named Blair Styra who's
Mhm,
in New Zealand who channels an entity called Tabash, who
mhm.
has been a game changer
Yeah,
for just me, right? Like,
yeah.
um, I don't know how it works, right? Like, I'm assuming you get because you're an RTT practitioner, so like I'm assuming like if anyone's ever gone in down in hypnotherapy and had a session, right, where
Mhm,
that conscious part of you like kind of takes a back seat, and then
mhm,
something either your higher self or something that's a part of you comes in and starts stepping in and talking about higher language or higher knowledge. I
mhm.
think that channeled entity might be associated with your higher self. I don't know the dynamics of it. I don't really know the logistics of it. I just know that um, if you're resonating with the information, that's like the most important part. Like, I
Yeah,
think
and
it,
your openness, like
yeah.
you're so open. So here's what I believe. Like again, you have to understand in my history, being an evidence-based psychotherapist, they would have laughed me out of graduate school. This just was not part of the protocol and the way we understood human behavior and PI at the time was called person and environment. But I think anybody who is open and asking um, when there is the knowingness of the soul that you're ready, everybody has the ability to have psychic abilities, channeling abilities. I fundamentally believe that, right?
Mm.
And and the truth is, everybody's already done it. Like, let me ask you a question. Has there ever been a time in your life where you just knew something? You just knew it. You didn't have the facts. It wasn't like you went out and studied it. Something just would like viscerally, it's like, I know this.
Yeah, no, I when I went to LA, I knew that everything was gonna like I knew that I was gonna get out there travel, be fine, come back, because it's outside of my comfort zone. Like I've never done that, right? Like my wife, the universe has either manifested this for me, or something different where I manifested this, because everything was showing me the signs pointing me in this direction to do
Yeah.
this. And I'm like, I mean, there's an episode of, I just did it, my trip to LA. It's like, I was like 2 episodes ago, where I talk about this, where I was seeing signs everywhere,
Yes.
like numbers. And I would, this conversation with this practitioner that I went out there to do this with, like he said something, um, and I kept seeing that everywhere, right? Like,
You
so,
do.
like
Yeah.
I
Life.
knew, I had to go out there. Like things were unfolding for me to go out there.
Yeah.
And so I went out there, and like, my wife went with me, and she's like sweating bullets on the airplane, like, 'cause she doesn't like to fly. And I'm just like, I'm good. Like, I know we're gonna be good. Like, I just know it.
Yeah. Good. But you described so many things that open up the gateway to expanded wisdom, to tuning in, to receiving messages. Um, Soul speaks in so many ways. Body sensations, goosebumps might just run up and down your body. Inspired creativity, thoughts coming out of the blue. I call them divine downloads. Resonance. You come across a book and you're like, gosh, this is just resonance.
Mhm.
Nature is a huge gateway. We have to lose our busy brain in order to find the truth of who we are.
Mhm.
So nature helps us lose that rational mind, which, by the way, we all love, and we're going to need it for organizing steps later. We just don't need it to lead the way, right? The physical world, license plates, numbers on clocks, on license, on street signs, on
Mhm.
doors, dreams, symbols. It's infinite. But what I love about what you're describing is you have got this curiosity, you have got this willingness to say, you heard or felt or was guided to go to LA, and you're like, okay, I'm in. And if
Mhm.
we can just say, because some of my clients are pretty skeptical initially. This is all new to them. And they're like, Thompson. And I'm like, buckle up. We're going to be okay. It's come on. And I start in a place which might be more comfortable for them. But honestly, they come to learn there's so much more for us. The great truths, the timeless wisdom always precedes
Mhm. Yeah.
collective acceptance in science.
Somebody said it was like the Matrix, right?
Yeah.
And they told me to follow the white rabbit, and I didn't know what that meant at all. So I obviously Googled it and YouTubed it. And there's a scene where Neo is like talking with the universe on his computer screen, and it says follow the white rabbit. And then there's a couple that knock at the door, and there's a girl with a white rabbit on her shoulder, and he follows her. And I didn't watch the rest of it. But you want to talk about messages and signs. After they said this, I I saw the white rabbit everywhere. Like white rabbits came out of, and I'm not talking about Easter time. I'm talking about regular, I don't know. This is like 6 months ago, but I see white rabbits all the time. Someone, during this interview or whatever, this person had mentioned a college that, you know, is not local, but it's around. And
Mm,
I see this college everywhere,
mm,
right? Like it's funny how the universe talks to us. We're just
yeah.
not awake to it. We're just not conscious to it.
There you go. Because most of us, by the way, aren't tuned in. We are multitasking. And by the way, I get that. That was me. I was taking another business call while I was making dinner for my children. I was driving in the car, taking a call. I wanted to maximize time. I was listening to something. Um, while I was exercising. And to truly access these gateways, we need to, I think everyone needs to practice stillness.
Mm.
And there's different ways we can get at stillness, but at least every single day to just commit to doing nothing but consciously joining the rhythm of your breath and listening.
Mm.
And most of us, when my master yoga teacher was training me, I'm like, you don't know me very well. I can't sit still. My head's going 1,000 miles. I got to call this person in China. We got to do this over here and across the world. And what I had to learn is I had to change my story. We've been taught to be on the run. We have been taught to go, 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 go. We've been taught that the true riches were the stuff. And so it's taken us away from the truth of who we are as unlimited beings.
Mm-hmm.
So I invite everyone to, I'll tell my clients, you got 30 seconds. They're like, I'm super busy. I'm like, then 30 seconds ain't going to matter. If you're already late to a meeting, what's 30 more seconds? Mm-hmm. Close your eyes, hand on heart center, hand on your belly, and feel that breath, like consciously, literally feel the breath. Raise your hands, lower your hands. Your busy brain's going to jump in and say, noted. And it might do that 10 times during the 30 seconds. I'm like, my goodness, you're busy. Noted. Retouch, because we follow touch in the body. And congratulate yourself. You did it. 30 seconds. Maybe the next day it's 60 seconds. And if you stick with that, over time, you're going to unravel the story that I can't do this. My head's too busy. I'm too antsy. Those are stories we've said and we've now made true. Hmm. And so that's one way. But we also can lose that busy mind in nature. Some people can do it through painting, through music, through rhythmic lifting of weights, or a freeing run where they lose it. But even if you'd use an active pursuit, I really want to invite everyone to learn how to consciously tune into their breath and listen to the wisdom that will emerge.
When you tap into that higher self or channel, right? Do you hear in your thoughts? Do you hear a separate voice? Are you a trance channeler? What does that look like?
Yeah, it looks many different ways. So often before every client session, I always just tune into their energy, and I specifically ask for things that I need to listen for, directions we might have to take. So I just kind of tune into the energy. I do that even before every podcast, and
Really?
so, yeah, just yes, I try and just move through very consciously to see if there's some wisdom that I need to tune into, so that what you and I offer and create together this evening is incredibly meaningful to your guest.
This is definitely meaningful.
Yeah.
What was the energy reading you got before the interview?
Literally, I was outside. I often ground barefoot on the ground, so I harmonize with the earth. I was up against a tree. My neighbor's taking out the laundry. They're so used to it now. They used to go, honestly, Toms, we love you so much, but what are you doing out here? And I'm like, listen, this just helps me tune in to how I can best be used over the next hour. Mm-hmm. And the energy was just very resonant. It was calm. It was just in sync. I just kept hearing sync, sync. So there wasn't any deeper message other than that for tonight, which was actually lovely, because sometimes, there's a resonance that that isn't clicking, right? Then the work is different. So, yeah.
I love that. Where are you at right now in the US?
I'm in Minneapolis.
Okay. So you have like when you're grounding, you're out there grounding. Like
I am. So I live on a lake and it's heavily wooded. Nature is, I believe, one of our greatest wisdom teachers. Uh, Laying in the arms of the redwoods in California, talk about transcendent wisdom experiences. But right here, it's incredibly beautiful. But I love the buzz of a city too. So for those of you who are living in the city, open your window and just feel the vital life force of air. Feel the vital life force of sun and connect to it. And if we just take a few moments and deeply connect, we open up another whole channel of wisdom within us. We start to see things differently in the world. You started to see rabbits. You were willing to see an expanded way of walking through the world. We all can do that every day. We can do that before walking into the next business meeting. If we would just close our eyes and ask, help me to see what I need to see. Help me to speak what I need to speak. Use me as a force for good. That simple intention would be a game changer.
now, do you say that when you feel like you're hitting a brick wall, right? Like when you feel like a greater pull from the universe and like you're going back to your point of the knowing, there's something
Yeah.
that you're here to do or you're here to experience and you don't know what that is, and it feels like you're drowning, it feels like you're doing everything you can to open yourself up to the universe. What do
Yeah.
you say to God? What do you say to your guides? What do you say to the ascended masters? What do you say to anyone who's listening that's helping you out along your path? Like, is it just as simply as give me a sign? What is my next thing? Because I feel like there is a pool, like there is a large pool for me, and I don't want to give up on it, but there's also resistance. You know what I mean? Like there's
Well,
things
of
out
course
there.
there's resistance. I get it. But one of the things I want to first encourage, and honestly, it's probably going to be one of the hardest asks, which is let go of needing to find the answer right now. Part of my struggle when I was in my 911 is I like to think fast, move fast, make a big impact, get on with it, right? So I don't waste time and I can make a difference. But the soul's knowing of timing cannot be rushed. And the more I pushed for the gold, it wasn't that pathway. And I don't think that there's wrong pathways. I really don't. I think that there's value to be learned. But what I had to learn was actually to rest in the unknowing and to embrace it and say, what is it you'd love for me to know just for this next hour? And then my impatience would kick in and I might be exploring on the internet saying, maybe I should do this or this or da, 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 da. And I'd be like, okay, Thompson. And then I'd go back into stillness and I'd say, okay, I'm going to swing again here. What does I need to know for now? Guide me and make it loud, because I might be in my busy brain and I'm just might miss it. So please make it loud. So part of it actually is you've already offered the willingness. You're already out there at exploring. But I also encourage you to spend some time or more time, if it's not part of your regular practice, in just being in the pause. Embrace that in between, because it is It's funny, in the fertile, dark ground is where most of life grows, plants, seeds. And yet we wanna get on with it. We got stuff to do. So I'm just wondering if you can add the and to this and embrace it and just be with it and breathe in through the discomfort and ask the discomfort what it'd like to teach you. Breathe into the confusion or the not knowing, and ask what it has to teach. And more than anything, just rest. You will never ever mess, and I believe this with the trillions of cells in my being, you will never miss what is meant for you. But there is a divine timing that we can't rush. And along the way, if you pick a path, there'll be a course correction if that's not the pathway for you.
Have you, like, what does that course correction look like for you though, right?
Mhm.
Like, I feel
Yes,
like you've had so many different paths and like,
I
yeah,
have,
you know?
which is what I'm talking about. There's no way in heck I could have designed the way just even my professional career laid out, not a chance, or my personal life either. But so what that how I got corrected, if you will. So during the times when I referenced living in half congruence, I was building traditional executive coaching practice, or, programs to sell online. By the way, my peers were selling them, delivering great value, making a ton of money. I'm a creative little bugger. I created a number of programs, not a 5 people, 10 people. They would not take flight. That wasn't what I was meant to do at that point. So then I started very briefly looking at corporate jobs and thought, should I go run an international HR function again? I at one point did a very brief stint as a business general staff manager in flat panel TVs. I'm like, do I go there? And even just opening the job boards, it was really clear. And the next week, clients came in, speaking engagements came in. So as long as we're always walking through life, notice what you notice. Stop and pause, truly, all day long. Notice what you notice and say, it's the message for me. I walk through life listening to the thousands of clever ways life is guiding and loving me every day. Most of us are in our head because we're trying to do the sort. And I'd love for people to actually just truly move through life more frequently, just noticing what you notice. And in that awareness, it'll show you the way.
Mm. Jeanine, I can talk to you all night.
Oh my gosh, our time is, wow. It went by in the blink of an eye.
I know. I was grounded.
Yes.
I'm very grounded in this conversation. Like, I just love hearing your take on it and your philosophy and just like your story of how it's so interwoven, like from the left to the right, left brain, right brain, and like now soul and heart. Like,
Yes.
it's just so beautiful. And like I challenge everyone here listening today, like to start living more from your heart. Like, I choose to live differently. Like, I was such a brain led guy, I had to be science based, and I had to be, I lived from the ego. I had built a personality. I had created a personality that protected me.
Yes.
And I was scared of being vulnerable, and I didn't want to be hurt. And now I can feel my heart emerging, right? It's
Yes.
almost like the resurrection of Christ almost over
Yes.
here, the rock rolling away from the tomb. And
Yeah.
I take that from Paul Selig's book, but he
Yeah.
channels and living differently. And I challenge everyone here tonight to live differently, live with your heart first, because
Yeah.
that is the knowing, right? That's the remembering of our
It is.
true intelligence.
It is indeed. And that spiritual heart um, uh, is the knowing of your soul's will.
Knowing of your soul's will. Where can we go? Where can we find more about you? How can we get in contact? Where can we buy the book?
Yeah. So you can find me at JanineThompson.net, and, you know, drop me an email, schedule a complimentary assessment. I just love to chat with people. If it's not me, I'll help you find what might serve you best. You can find my book on Barnes and Noble, Amazon, in all, a number of countries. And if you'd like to support your local bookstores, they can order it through the Ingram catalog. So support that local community. Just getting started on Instagram. I'm _Jeanine Thompson _. So not a whole lot there, but come help me build this tribe and social media presence. So thank you so much. And also, thank you for the gift of you and the gift of your courage and vulnerability to share what you're sharing so openly, and your exploration. And I can't wait to learn more. I just can't wait to learn more. It's been such a great joy.